Last time we were talking about adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing integers. Now we're going to move on to doing those four operations with fractions. We're going to start with multiplying fractions. It's actually the easiest of the four because when you multiply, you just multiply straight across. So I'm going to multiply across the top. These are called the numerators. 10 times 1 is 10. And straight across the bottom. 7 times 4 is 28. Now always take a look at your answer and ask yourself if you can simplify it, or if there's a number that divides into 10 and 28. And there is 2. So when I divide 10 by 2 and 28 by 2, 10/28, which is a good answer, is equivalent to 5/14. And that's the best answer. And we always want our fractions in simplest form. I'm going to skip down to number 4. Just going to do a couple from every section, and then later you can check some other ones if you want to do some on your own. Notice the answers are off to the right. Number 4 is a little bit different because I see that this is a negative fraction, so I'm going to actually rewrite it with the negative sign on top, or maybe you want to cross off the negative sign and move it to the top. It's the top number that's negative. So multiply straight across. We get negative 12, and on the bottom 2 times 3 is 6. Now try to simplify this fraction. This one's kind of weird because 6 actually goes into 12. So negative 12 divided by 6 is actually just negative 2. Our answer is not actually even a fraction. Finding the quotient. We use the phrase keep, switch, flip. You are going to keep the first fraction as it is. You're going to switch division to multiplication. And in order to do that, you need to flip the second fraction to the reciprocal. If you want to write this down, you can. You can use this on your pretest, by the way. Everyone's picking up their pencils. Oh, all right. Flip second fraction to reciprocal. And you'll see what the reciprocal looks like here in a second. So we're going to take, let's go down to number 7. So I'm going to keep the first fraction right there as it is. So 5 divided by 3. Switch the division symbol to multiplication. Flip the second fraction, this one, to the reciprocal. So instead of the 5 being on top and the 6 on the bottom, the 6 goes down to the top and the 5 goes down to the bottom. Now, folks, we are multiplying straight across because this is a multiplication problem now, and that is easy. Ooh. Multiply straight across, just like we did. So we get 30 divided by 15. Now you can reduce that or simplify it by dividing the top and the bottom by 15, or maybe just realize that 30 divided by 15 is 2. Let's try number 8. So we get negative 7/4. Keep that first fraction, switch the division to multiplication, and now make the reciprocal of the second fraction. So the 2 goes on top, and the negative 3 goes to the bottom. So we get negative 14 over negative 12. So from here, we can try to simplify this. We can divide the top and the bottom by negative 2. If both the top and the bottom, the numerator and the denominator, are negative, divide by a negative so you'll get a positive fraction. Because remember, a negative divided by a negative is a positive. So the best answer is 7/6. All right, so that was multiplication and then division. And division actually becomes multiplication if we do the keep, switch, flip. Now let's talk about adding fractions. To add fractions, there is one big important rule. You need to have a common denominator. I'm going to actually make up a problem on the bottom, and if you want to do that, you can. Back when I was in high school, sometimes I'd forget the rules as well. I'd see 1/4 plus 1/4, and I'd forget, what do I do? Do I add the bottom numbers? Well, picture a 1/4. Say you have 1/4 of a pizza, plus you have 1/4 of another pizza. What do you have? You have 2/4 of a pizza. When you move this slice over there, now you have 2/4 of the pizza. So the solution is 2/4. Some of you might be like, well, dude, if you got 2/4 of a pizza, you got a half, because we can simplify that fraction down to a half. So the rules for adding fractions is you can't actually add fractions until you have a common denominator, until the pizzas are all the same size and cut into the same number of pieces. Then we're going to add across the top. So add across top. That's the word across. I don't know why I make it cursive all of a sudden. And then B, you're going to keep denominator the same. So you do not add those together. Keep denominator the same. And then part C, simplify that fraction if you can. So the denominator in the end, like in our answer here, it doesn't actually stay 4. It becomes 4 though once I simplified. So, I don't know, let's try number 10. So number 10, we look for a common denominator. What number does 3 and 8 go into? So you can list the multiples of 3. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27. That's what you're envisioning. Those are the numbers that 3 goes into. And then here's the multiples of 8. And you're going to look for a number, the first number that shows up on both lists. 24 shows up on both lists. Now there's other bigger numbers that would show up, and you can use those, like 72 would show up. You can use that as your common denominator, but it's easier to use the smallest number that both actually multiply into. So both fractions will be something out of 24, and our initial answer will also be something out of 24. So we're still actually on this first step, getting the common denominator. Now that we've turned this miraculously into 24, well, actually we took 8 times 3 to get 24, right? What you do at the bottom, you have to do the top. So if you have 5/8 of a pizza, it's also the same as if you were to cut them into slices at 24, you have 15 24ths of a pizza. Those fractions are equivalent. Now 3 times what gets you 24? Well, I had to multiply this bottom of the fraction by 8 to get the 24, so I have to do that to the top. So if you have 2/3 of a pizza, you also have 16. 2 times 8 is 16. 16 24ths. We have to do that because in order to add the fractions together, we have to have that common denominator. So if I slide the pieces of pizza together on the same box, I actually have 31 slices. So I've actually got more than a whole pizza here. So the final answer is 31 out of 24, 31 24ths. Leave that improper. Some of you are maybe bothered because the number on top is bigger than the denominator, the number on the bottom. Leave it. In middle school, you've learned how to change that to a mixed number like 1 and 7/24, and that's a good skill to have. Here in high school, we'll keep it improper. So there's your final answer, and you can't simplify that fraction at all. Let's try one more. Now, number 11 is actually already kind of, it's easier. Like number 11, it already has a common denominator. So really, you add across the top now. You get -5, right? Because that goes on top. You have -5 plus 5, so you have 0/3. If you have 0/3 of a pizza, you got 0 pizza. Number 9. Let's do number 9. I love number 9, yeah. Let's look for a common denominator there. So you're thinking, what number does 2 and 4 multiply into? So you could list the multiples of 2 and the multiples of 4. I'm going to do that down here actually because I'm running out of space. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Now I'm going to list the multiples of 4. 4, 8, 12. So 12 is a common multiple. 8 is a common multiple. 4 is the least common multiple. And it'd be good to use that. Some of you use the trick that if I just multiply the denominators together, I will get a common denominator, and it does. If you can find a smaller or the least common multiple, it saves you a little bit of work in the end. But that's fine to use 8s here instead. Just your work will be a little different until the very end. When you simplify it, it should be the same solution. So I don't have to change the denominator, which means just multiplying it by 1. So on top I have -1 times 1, which is -1. Now over here, to get this 2 to become a 4, I had to multiply it by 2. So I multiply the top by 2. 1/2 is the same as 2/4. And now remember, I'm adding. So I get 1/4. Boom, circle that. Subtraction is really the same as adding, except for we can call it keep, switch, flip, or adding the opposite. Now keep switch flip in terms of keeping the first value, switching subtraction to addition, and doing the opposite or taking the opposite, flipping the sign of the second term. So in number 13, now that I have a common denominator, it's really the same list as before. Now I add across the top. So I get 4 plus negative 2, which is 2. And then the bottom, when I'm adding fractions, I have to have the common denominator, which I have, and then I keep that denominator coming over for my initial answer. Notice on this one, if you just take the top and you go 4 minus 2, you get that 2. But if you want to add the opposite there, you can. Let's go to number 15. So you got to get a common denominator. So 14 would be the common denominator. Your answer to start with will be out of 14 as well. So you make 3 fractions out of 14. First fraction, second fraction, first solution. So I had to multiply the bottom by 7 to get 14. Do that to the top. 1/2 is the same as 7/14. To get 7 to become 14, you have to multiply by 2. Do that to the top. So you get 16 on top. Now pay attention, be careful. We are subtracting right now. So either you write down 7 minus 16, and that's what you do, 7 minus 16, or if you want to add the opposite, you can. So 7 plus negative 16, which is negative 9. So the final answer is negative 9/14. Circle that. Why don't you try some on your own? So you're going to take a pretest here in like 10 minutes or so. You should at least have 15 minutes to do it, maybe 20. Why don't you try some of these on your own? The answers are on the side. Or if you want to try some order of operations, because that will also show up on there. On the back of this practice you just did, there is order of operations with the solutions as well. You can work together for this part. What you're going to take at the end of the hour for the last 20 minutes is just a pretest. It's not going to get graded if things don't go well, so do not worry at all. Just try our best. And if the entire class does well on certain sections, it means that we don't have to listen to Mr. Bishke teach that section, because as a class you already know how to do it. So that's the plan. I'm just trying to save you guys some time if you already know what you're doing as a class. All right, have fun, good luck, be nice.